All right. Thank you so much for being here. I am super excited today to talk about probably the all-time favorite thing that I ever get to teach, which is life planning. And it's going to be a little interactive. I'll probably ask you guys a few questions here or there as we go through. But ultimately, I've never taught this on a webinar. I've always taught it live. And live is a different experience. And oftentimes it's done in a half a day because we give time during the conversation to go out and actually work on your life plan and sort of get a little bit of a start. We put you in groups, we let you sharpen each other and, kind of give each other encouragement and ideas and suggestions. And so it's a little different format. We will be going, I'm guessing about an hour, maybe slightly less. It really just depends, as I haven't taught it all straight ever. And like I said, I'm just really excited. So I do have a PowerPoint. I know, I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint. You guys probably know that about me, but I'm going to use that kind of as my guidepost to kind of get us through to really hit the nail on the head of what I think are the most important things. And I'll go in and out of the PowerPoint because the last thing I like is my little face up here in the corner. I like to be looking at you guys and making you understand where I think you can shine with this process. So let me just get this fancy thing going here like I'm supposed to with we'll see how that works. Maybe not. I guess I got to go in this way. I have to share my screen. And then after I share my screen, then I can make it go full screen, not the other way around. And so here we go. All right. So this is not about me. This is about you. This is your life plan. And as I said, I think this is an opportunity for you to change your life going forward. Not just yours, I think the people around you. And it's an opportunity to do things a little different than you've done them before. So I think you guys all know I'm Todd Bookspan. I'm the founder of Win by Noon, but more importantly, I've been a life planner now for 2 decades, for 20, maybe just under, pretty darn close, 19 and a half years, 20 years, I've been a life planner. And I would tell you that it changed the trajectory of who I was, how I interacted with friends, family, and really how I show up. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. Now, for those of you who also want to talk business, I'll bring us down for a second. I'll be doing another business planning webinar tomorrow. Those of you who were on the last one know that we had a little slide malfunction, and we will have the original version with slides tomorrow. I'll be doing that at 9 a.m. Pacific time as well. Just go to winbynoon.com/calendar to jump on. All right, so here's today's plan. We're gonna roll through this, and I already see people talking in chat, so I'll make sure that I'm paying attention to that to answer questions as we go. Someone's asking if there's a workbook. That's a great question. And the answer is sort of. I'll have a link for you to get a workbook at the end that is from the authors of the book versus me putting together my own thing. And when I say the book, let me just tell you what that book is so that you guys kind of understand what it is that I'm talking about. This whole conversation is predicated off of this book, Living Forward. The book that when I get invited to speak and asked what books were most impactful on me, I started life planning before this book existed. I've met Michael Hyatt. I don't really know him, but I'm, dear friends with Daniel Harkavy. He's the founder of Building Champions, and they wrote the book, and I'm basing this conversation off of that. Many of you know I was a coach for Building Champions for 3 years, so I was able to not only teach this, do work on this one-on-one with clients and impact their lives, but I was able to actually get up in front of rooms and teach this. And I would tell you that as a loan officer, before I started coaching, I actually taught this. I taught it to our company. I taught it to my realtor partners, my team. It's just something that is so passionate for me that I taught it. But I really want to make sure I call out that I'm basing this whole conversation today off of Living Forward. It's a great book. And like I said, I've got resources from Daniel and Michael that I will give you guys at the end where you can kind of get a guide that'll help you life plan and, really get you set up. But ultimately, in the end, if you take good notes, you'll be able to get through this and understand that you don't need a workbook. You don't need much more than a notebook. And then really my life plan is, 13 pages that's typed, and there's different times where I'll show you different things. I'm in the process of redoing it. I'll show in a minute when it's on big screen, but ultimately it's going to be based off of Living Forward. And I want to give credit where credit is due. People often ask, why is this important to me? And it's funny because when I taught this the last time live, which, it's been a couple of years because of the health situation, This was the photo that was in there. And I was just laughing because look at my hair, it's not quite gray. And my kids are young. And so I decided I better put a little more recent photo in here of the Bookspan family. And, ultimately it's important to me because a life plan was a reminder to me that I was focusing on the wrong things. I shouldn't say focusing on, I was prioritizing the wrong things. And, I think some of you maybe can relate, almost 20 years ago when I got into the mortgage business, I was 2 years into it. I was so focused on growth. I was so focused on crushing in business. I was going in the office at 6 o'clock. I was getting home for dinner at 5. I was having dinner with the family. I was reading to my kids at night. I was putting them to bed, and then I was working late. And I just wasn't prioritized correctly. I thought what was most important was growing my business to support my family. And when I wrote my life plan, I realized that yes, my business is important, but not nearly as important as many other things. And we'll walk through what those other things look like as we keep going. But the bottom line is this. The bottom line is it's going to be important to you in whatever level you choose. But I always say that when I got a coach. So here was my first coach, Coach Bill Hart, wearing his boots, proud on stage here. And I would tell you, I hired Bill to coach me on being a better loan officer. And I knew that Bill was connected. I knew Bill had been in the real estate industry for years and years and years and was a nationally recognized real estate trainer. And I believed that if I had Bill help me with my business, that I would grow. And guess what? He did. But more importantly, I credit Bill and Building Champions with making me a better human, a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better team leader. And it really came back to the life plan. And I always joke about it because Bill, he didn't outright threaten me, but and he swears he didn't, but ultimately what he said was, hey, I got this other client. I've been coaching him for a month or two, and he hasn't completed his life plan, and I'm getting ready to fire him, which was code for me was, Todd, get it together or you're getting fired. And so I did a poor job. I would call it a half-assed job, but I probably shouldn't swear on my webinar, but I did a poor job because I didn't understand it at the time, but it still gave me, kind of that North Star that I was going to shoot for in life, and really did, help me go in the right direction. And one thing that I've done is every year when I redo my life plan, I don't redo the old one and save over it. I actually save the old one so I can go back and look. And so when I prepped up this new 2022 life plan, I saved the previous one. So that way I've got, my 2021 saved so I can go back there and look, just because when I do my life planning, I like to reminisce. We'll talk about that as well. And so here's kind of the key. Well, what happens is what people ask, like really what happens. And here's what I know, and what Daniel and Michael will tell you in the book Living Forward is we drift, right? So I kind of think about this whole Gilligan's Island thing, the 3-hour tour. And I think we've all been there, right? We all start down this path and we are really focused. And then we go, oh my gosh, you know what? It's my kid's 5 now. What happened to the last 5 years? Or, oh my gosh, I've been married now for 6 years and it just has flown by. And, the reason it flies by is because we allow ourselves to drift. We allowed ourselves to get distracted by other things. Most of you who've heard me talk before would remember that I talk a lot about being proactive, being intentional, being committed. And what happens is because we don't really have a plan, we just end up drifting. And, drifting is just not good. It's not good at all. Why is it not good? Because as you drift, you become unaware, right? You're overwhelmed, you're distracted. And then, you really become deceived. And, let me sort of talk about that for a minute. And again, I'll always share from my personal stories because I think that's the easiest way for me to teach it. And it's different for everyone. And I'm hoping that you can learn from my experience. As I said, I was laser focused. I was, dialed in. I was doing the things that I thought I needed to do. And in reality, I was really in the drift. I was deceived in thinking that I was doing the right thing. There's no doubt I was overwhelmed. All those words related to me. And so I'll put those back up here in a second so you guys can think about it. And, the reason you talk about the drift when you're teaching is that you're given 24 hours a day, however many seconds that is. I used to know off the top of my head. One of you probably does. But you're given that time and you get to do what you choose to do with it. And, oftentimes we are doing other people's priorities. Other times we are working our own priorities, but maybe they're not the priorities that if we actually sat back, took a deep breath, spent some time thinking about what's truly most important to me, that we would get done. And so as I teach this live and people, I see the look on people's faces of, I'm 53 now. And so I started planning in my 30s, right? I mean, that was a whole lot different. And even then I was like, wow, like that is crazy how much time has gone by, the opportunities that were there. And, I think it's a really difficult one because, oftentimes the way that this shows up for people is in consequences, right? And so those consequences are confusion, right? Like, hey, really, what is important to me? Expense, right? It doesn't necessarily dollar expense oftentimes, but this expense is really the emotional toll on yourself and those around you who are counting on you. Lost opportunity. And, this one's a hard one because oftentimes when we're running so fast and we don't actually ever step back and think and relax, we miss things that would have been there. So that lost opportunity, again, most of the time when I teach this, people think business opportunity, but what other lost opportunities are there? One of the things that I am, really proud about is that, the mortgage business gave me the opportunity to be the dad at school that I wanted to be. And it was one area I didn't mess up. I was on every field trip that I was invited or allowed to go on. I was one of the few dads, if not the only dad, who could go on an overnight field trip and, be there because they needed more dads. Even though I had, daughters, I was the guy who had all the boys, right? I'd have a room full of boys and I was always the cool dad. And I'd look back and say, gosh, that's an opportunity I didn't lose, but I could have, right? If I didn't write in my life plan how important that was to me, that was a risk. Pain. And then really the last one, regret. It's one of those things where, you can't beat yourself up over the past because you can't rewind the clock, right? There's nothing that you can do to get it back. And so the fact that I started doing it in my 30s is a benefit than if I had waited till my 40s or 50s. And so some of you are probably my age or older and have never really thought about it. And I'm going to encourage you as you go through the process to let things go, because you're going to have all of these things and you just can't beat yourself up over it. What you're looking at is, what's my opportunity to live today forward in a way that is more intentional. So this is the quote. This is actually my first coaching assignment from Coach Bill Hart. We all must suffer from one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The difference is discipline weighs ounces while regret weighs tons. And, I love this. I can still quote this. And it's important to me because, again, discipline is such a big part of Win by Noon, but it's really a part of life. And so I bring it up because this extra little bit of time that you take is going to take discipline, but this extra little bit of time that you take can change the trajectory of your life and those lives around you, should you choose to do it. And, the challenge is that I could literally spend 30 minutes just talking about the drift, just talking about these things to ultimately, I hate to say it, bring you down to the point that you're like, oh my gosh, Todd, I am totally bought in. And that's not what I'm going to do today, but I have to point it out. I have to have you reflect and look at that, because if I don't, then the risk is that you'll leave this webinar today and you won't take action. You won't do this, which you've got to do if you want to move forward. Now, we'll talk later about the strategies to get it done, but ultimately just know that this is the key. This is the key. You've got to choose discipline over regret. All right, so what are you going to plan for? Like, what do you currently plan for? Let's just sort of talk about a couple of things. All right, so here we go. Vacation, cars, shopping, and your wedding. All right, so let's talk about it. Any guesses? How much time does the average person spend shopping for a car? This is where you can use the chat. So this will be the one, maybe one of the few interactive parts I've got. All right, someone must tell me. Tell me, what do you guys think? All right, 1 week, couple of months. Yep, these are all legit answers. Let me get my chat up and going. I got Q&A up, I got chat going, I got all sorts of things. All right, 2 months. Yeah, so the average person spends a little over a month And they say that it's typically a full 9 hours, and plus the fact that you have 5 to 6 hours potentially at the dealership. Now, I tell you that I've learned to buy a car over the internet, and it makes it a lot better, but you're still worst case going to spend 2 to 3 hours. But I spent hours because I was trying to find just the right car and do all these things. And it's kind of crazy. In fact, it's funny. I've got my friend Kyle Fuller on here. He's infinite banking expert, and you want to learn how to finance a car and finance your life better. Google Kyle and his business. You will it'll change your trajectory. But ultimately, yeah, that's crazy, right? People spend that much time. How about a vacation? What does the average person spend planning a family, like your summer vacation? Two weeks. There we go. See, that's, like we're planning our summer vacation now, and it's going to be like a 2-month vacation. We had a ton of time in there. So a few weeks, right? So again, I'm getting a lot of time in there. The average people spend is 10 to 20 hours to plan a vacation. And again, you guys all said longer times. I would have thought the same. And then the final one is a wedding, right? So think about that. If your wedding is 10 to 18 months out, how much time do you think the average groom and bride spend on building their dream wedding? A year. Yep. That's it. They say like literally the average is 10 to 18 months. And so it is 200 to 300 hours, right? I mean, think about that. That's 5 to 7.5 weeks, right? Of work time, like work weeks, 8 hours a day, right? 200 to 300 hours. And guess what? How much time have you, talking to each of you, and me prior to getting life planning, how much time do you really spend planning your life, right? A lot of you are on my business planning class. In fact, I have 2/3 the number of people on this class as I had on my business planning class last week. And I'm not surprised, right? Everyone wants to plan their business. And my reason I bring up those numbers, because they sound kind of crazy, is because I want you guys to, I really want you guys to think about it, because I want you to realize that your life is worth taking the time to plan for, right? Let me say that again. Your life and those around you who are important to you are important to plan for. All right, so yeah, that's kind of crazy. So let's just talk about what is a life plan. I think that's where people kind of get, stressed out, right? They think it's going to be, these big thick notebooks full of stuff. And it's really just a short written document, right? Anywhere from 5 to 15 pages. I already said to you guys, right? Mine is 13 pages, right? It's 13 pages. I don't have it in anything fancy. It's just paper. I like to shove it into my Win by Noon planner. I carry it around. It's in my backpack. And so, that's, for me, that's what it is, right? Short written document. And it's created for you and by you. And this is a hard one, because all right, I'll say it. My wife was mad at me when I wrote my life plan. She's like, how can you be writing your life plan without me? And then I left it on the bedside table when I went to work, and she read it. She says, oh, this is actually for us. And so when we life plan, my wife, that's some, not that year, but a couple years within that, she wrote her own life plan. And I actually brought a coach in as well, from Building Champions, who taught life planning to, my referral partners. It was awesome. And so she wrote her life plan, and the coach actually does one of the best life plans that he had seen. And so now we individually write our life plans, but then we sit down later and we reconcile what's in them, like what's important to us, what are we looking to do? But ultimately, it's your plan. It's about you and for you. It describes how you want to be remembered. And I'm going to talk about this in a bit. This is a hard part of it. Like, how do you really want to be remembered, right? What's that legacy that you want to leave behind? And it articulates your personal priorities, right? Again, what is really going to be important to me in 2022? And I do feel like I use this word intentionality a lot. Everyone, I see these people like, I got my one word for the year. So my word is intentionality for 2022. And it was commitment in 2021. And it's important to me to be super intentional with my time, intentional with my focus, intentional with my energy. And ultimately, I've got to write it down to remind myself. And then I've got to review it to remind myself, right? Because if not, I'm going to be in the drift. I'm going to be doing other things that are other people's priorities, or things that I think are important at the moment, but I need my life plan to ground me, to remind me what truly is important. It provides the specific actions necessary. Those of you who, watch me on the, webinars that I do, a mortgage coach, my job at the end of the call is to give an action plan to everyone. Like, what is it that you should do? And it was funny. I just decided now, yes, I'm going to give some highlights, but I'm just telling people, take some action. Like, it doesn't matter what action you take. Don't take the action I give you, take action. Because ultimately in the end, if you're going to invest time and energy, you got to take action. And so your life plan is going to help you with some specific actions. You're going to create these steps and these things that you want to remind yourself to do consistently. And it's a living document. I already told you, right? Mine changes every year. And I'll walk you through when I do it, how I do it, some best practices, because I think that is, that's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is that you have this opportunity to look at it. You don't have to redo it every year, should you? Yes. But, ultimately in the end, I'd say 85%, 90% of my plan is the same as it's been for all these years. And there's just these little tweaks and these little nuances that are important. And that's why it's a living document. Your life plan is going to answer 3 questions. And because oftentimes, again, people are like, well, why? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And it's this idea of how do I want to be remembered? And that's a humbling one, right? Like, what is it that I want to, what is it that I want to be remembered for? And so as you're thinking through the life plan, that'll be one of those questions you're going to continually ask yourself in each of the categories in your plan. What matters most? Like, what really truly is most important to me? Because in the end, when we know we spend 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever it is, doing our job, that is tough, right? If we're doing our job all that time, it doesn't give us a lot of time to do those other things that we know are not nearly as important as it. Now, yes, I said it before, for me, I felt like I had to provide for my family. And you probably do too, whether you've got a family or just you've got to provide. But the bottom line is that there's other things that are important. We got to make sure that we identify those so that we're aware and don't later on regret that we didn't. And then it's also, how can I get from where I am from here to where I want to be, right? Because ultimately that's a lot of it. You've got that gap, right? Let's call that the opportunity gap, right? So the opportunity gap is, okay, today, this is where I am. And at the end of next year, maybe 3 years, maybe 10 years, like, this is what I want to see, right? We're building this long-term piece. And so if this is where you are and this is where you're trying to go, in between here is this gap, right? It's kind of like the horizon. As you're driving, I drive here to California, the horizon keeps moving ahead of me. I never catch up to the horizon. You're always going to have this gap. And so when you write a business plan or you write a life plan, you're always pushing that out further, right? Hey, I want this many days of vacation. Maybe next year I want a little bit more vacation. Maybe it's, hey, I'm trying to get my fitness level up. And then once you get to that fitness level, you're not going to stop there. You're going to keep moving your fitness level forward. And so it's this whole idea of where am I now? So we're going to talk about it in a minute, current reality. And then where am I trying to go? And then we talk about those actions, and those action steps are going to be the things that you're going to need to put in place to bridge the gap. And I used that word before, disciplines. They're going to be the disciplines. Those are going to be the activities that get scheduled. Those will be the things that are going to be super important to execute on your plan. Now, here's what happens, right? I'll go and I won't look at my plan for a bit, call it a few weeks, maybe even a month or two. Like, right, when the health situation started, I didn't look at my life plan. We were so busy just reacting to everything. And then guess what happens? Then you drift. Then you realize you didn't do those things. And so that's why we're going to slow down. We're going to look at it. We're going to identify those gaps. And then we'll talk about how we're going to take action on those gaps as we go through. All right. So here's what your life plan will give you, right? Ultimately, your life plan is going to give you clarity. And I would tell you, when I taught this for Building Champions, it had a picture of a GPS here, right? Like, hey, the life plan is your GPS. That's what Michael Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy would say. It's a GPS for where you're going, right? It's a GPS for your life. And I laughed because it was like this old school GPS. And I'm thinking, well, we don't use an old school GPS anymore, right? You're going to use your phone, right? I should have put a picture of Waze in there or something, right? That's my GPS. But, it's ultimately going to be that thing that, that reminds you, where you're going. Sorry, I'm just clearing out my Q&A and checking my chat. And so really the first thing it's going to give you is clarity. And I mean, clarity is really important. I think most of the reason that people get in the drift and most people kind of get analysis paralysis and don't actually do things is because they're not clear on things. but it also gives you confidence, right? I think you guys have probably heard that before. When you have clarity in whatever it is in life that you're doing or business, it gives you confidence. It gives you confidence in what you're doing today. It gives you confidence to know, hey, these are the important things I'm going to accomplish this week or this month or this quarter or this year. But it'll give you confidence, and it will give you courage. It'll give you courage to actually schedule. I'll say that again. Give you courage to actually schedule the things that you said were important, right? All these things tie together, because oftentimes someone will tell me what's really important to them. And I say, awesome. Can you show me how you schedule this? Can you show me how you prioritize this? And they're like, I really couldn't. And so it gave me the courage to say to my team, hey team, I'm going to check out for the next 5 hours because I'm going on a field trip. I always laugh because I pull out this, my precursor to Win by Noon. And the first time it was just a Building Champions notebook. And then I shrunk down into the notebook, and I put in, I put into it, all these, shrunk down these pages. And I laugh because the first, I flipped it open to a page when I was teaching just on a whim, like I do, because I got stuff sitting around me and I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about that. And I laugh because, the first Thursday morning on here, it says field trip. I was gone on the field trip until noon. And, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I had the courage to do that when I was being told by the people I work with that I had to work harder. And it gave me that courage. And so as you're going through this and leaving a legacy, there's going to be 2 steps. And ultimately, it's going to be to begin with the end in mind. You might have heard that from the 7 habits of highly effective people. Ultimately, it's really this whole idea of where is it that you're trying to go, right? And so you're really going to be thinking about that future. And a lot of you who know me know that I am really into health and longevity, and my goal is to push that out even further. And I'll kind of tell you a story. There's a coach out there. His name is Dan Sullivan. He runs Strategic Coach. And one of the tools that Dan would have you do as one of his first tools, if you Google him, he's got a book, he's going to live to be 135 or something was what he wants to live to. But he has a free tool you can download. And it is called the Life Extender. So Google that, Strategic Coach Life Extender. And I'm just going to spoil it here for you and walk you through it. And I've walked my team and other people through it. But ultimately what he says is, okay, how long are you going to live? And then, people pick, okay, 85. Like I thought, okay, my grandfather lived to 85. I can live to 85, maybe 90. And so he said, awesome. And then he said, okay, well, now think that you've lived this full life. You take good care of yourself. You eat healthy, you exercise. Medicine's going to change. You'll be able to probably live, potentially live a little bit longer. Think about that. Like, how long do you think you really live? Okay. And I said, okay, maybe I could live to be, 95 or 100 if that took place. And then he said, well, great. Now I just gave you an extra 10 years to live. And so, well, what are you going to do with that time? And it was kind of like, oh, I'll take Spanish. I'll learn the guitar. What other hobbies would you pick up? And then he said, well, awesome. Well, if you're going to live that long and you're going to have that great life, why wouldn't you actually do that now? Which I thought was a really cool exercise to force you to think back and say, okay, well, what would I really do if I had that time? And so just a reminder now that I got to take Spanish and get the guitar, or buy a guitar. I gave my guitar away. But I think that would be good. So we're going to begin with the end in mind. And so you're going to start with writing your eulogy. Now this, I'll tell you, this was the least appealing part of my life plan. And I would tell you now, it's still the weakest part of my life plan, because I didn't understand it at first. And I didn't want to write it. I didn't write it. Bill Hart didn't force me to write it, which was good. But it's still really short, right? It's just a paragraph. But it's really important, like, because this is really when you say, start with the end in mind. Who is it that I want when, I get to that time and I'm called up and it's my day. What is the person at my funeral up on that pulpit gonna say? So imagine you're a guest at your own funeral. And like I say, this was really tough for me. I just chose to not do it. And you may choose not to do it as well. And if we were talking, I would actually say, hey, look, right, you're going to have people way, way, way back in those back rows. And then you're going to have the people up in those front rows, right? Your family's going to be in the first row and close friends will be in the second row. And really is, how do you want those people to remember you, right? Yeah, you want the people in the back to remember you too, right? I want people to believe that I, left a legacy on, people in these industries that I support and that I, help people grow. But really what's important to me are the people in the front two rows. And imagine how those people are going to feel. And so you're going to write that first. So this is the first part. So when it comes to your life plan, the first thing you're going to do is write your eulogy. And again, it's super hard, and you're going to write it as if you were done. And it's really hard. It's probably the thing that most people get most emotional about. And, I've seen it happen because I'll send people out in the room and take a break and you'll go write your eulogy if I'm teaching it live. And really think about what they're going to say. But really what you're going to write about is how you want to be remembered, not how you are now, right? Because transparently, when I first wrote my first life plan, people wouldn't have said what I think they would say now. And so again, we're trying to envision our future self. Really, what is it that I want to be? What is it that you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? What is that impact going to be? And it really frames, for me, when I do my life plan review and I review my eulogy first, it frames the moment, it frames the emotion, it frames why I'm doing this, and why when I start looking at each of the individual categories of my life plan, it helps me frame it so that I don't forget why it's important and why I need to make sure I avoid the drift. And then step number 2 is leaving a legacy. And so then that's where you're going to really write these legacy statements. And so we'll have some examples of that. If you buy the book Living Forward, which I would strongly recommend you do, they've got legacy statements in here, that you would, that you can look at, right? And it's, it's a little bit legacy. There's also purpose statements. But again, you're really talking about how is it that I want to be remembered? And I would tell you a couple of things. So when I first started life planning, I mentioned that this book didn't exist. And so because the book didn't exist, it was a little more free form and less structured than it is now. And so I would tell you that if you actually read my current life plan, it's a lot of it resembles the book, but there's just a couple of things that I don't necessarily have in there. I've got a purpose statement for each one. I think that's more like what I would call my, I do it like I would tell you, like the purpose for my health account is exercise and eat for life so that I can watch my grandchildren grow up. Exercising with Tara is the best start of my day. It's still true today. Again, mine is short and sweet. Other people might have theirs be a little more flowery and longer sentences, right? There's, there's lots of opportunity for that. Someone is asking about the book, and someone says they haven't all reread it. So yeah, the book is Living Forward by Daniel Harkavy and Michael Hyatt. And that's where this is all based off of. All right, so you're going to write a legacy statement, and you're going to be writing this as, if being is apparently one word. You're going to write this as if being read by someone or by at some point in the future, right? It's who am I going to become, right? So a legacy statement around my health could be, mine's more like I said about kind of what a purpose statement is, like my role, what I looked at. But my legacy statement on my health could be, I'm 85 years old. I am, going for another 30-minute interval run. I weigh 159 pounds. I'm fit. I eat a diet that supports my lifestyle. I mean, it could be written as like that. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Said again. And it's really kind of how do you want to be remembered again. So it's kind of like who I was at that time. So it's that future you. And it's, again, the whole point is not to get stuck in current you, right? We're going to look at that though. We'll talk about that in just a sec, but really, how do you want to be remembered? Because ultimately what we want to do is make this statement compelling enough that we actually do the disciplines and activities it's going to require to get there. And, I like that word discipline, right? You can say I'm doing an activity, but a discipline is hard. A discipline, unfortunately, a lot of us fall short when it comes to our disciplines. And ultimately, you've heard the saying, show me someone's habits, and I can show you their success in business and in life. And this whole idea of chasing balance, it's not, you really don't have balance ever, in my opinion. It's not about being equal. It's about appropriate. And so think about that for a second. There are, those of you in the loan business can relate. And if you kind of watch what's happened in the loan business in the last 18 months, it'll make sense to you. You go in and out of quote unquote balance based on what's going on. And so I know when I was interviewing top producers last year and rates dropped, they said different things along the lines of, you know what? I don't have balance right now. Right now, I am doing my purchase business during the day. I'm having dinner with my family, and then I'm doing my refinance business at night. They said, hey, I had to ask my family's permission to be out of balance and be working on the weekend, right? People had to dig in because that business was just raining down from the sky, and you have to get that business going. And it's appropriate. And what I would say is my coaching would be ask for permission, right? Years ago when the HARP, the underwater refinance program came out, and I accidentally took 500 applications before the program came out, like we were just overwhelmed the moment we could hit start. I mean, we worked like 4 straight weeks, like every day, but we asked permission of the kids. We explained to them what it was. We explained to them why it was and how important it was to serve these families and help them get, out of this burden of, of their mortgage that was underwater. And it was, a mixed blessing. It was just crazy. I won't even go off on the tangent because it was just wild times. I'll just say this, we hired a person full-time just to print out people's faxes that they sent in with their documents. It was crazy. But ultimately I think balance is about appropriate. And then my coaching tip is ask permission of those around you before you become unbalanced. But in the end, there's just different times, right? You're going to work hard and then you're going to unplug and take a vacation, right? Those kinds of things. And so then after you've written your eulogy and the legacy statements, and again, so you've got 2 versions of it. So let's rewind for 1 second. Let's go. Eulogy is as if you died today. This is what, what that statement is. And the legacy statement is you in the future, right? So you've got kind of two different perspectives there. And then now we're going to talk about the accounts. So we're going to create life accounts, and we'll sort of talk about how that works. And so here they call it the circle of being. And what you'll notice is that there are different rings here. And, they've done it in, this is straight from the book. They've done it in ways that I think you would just say, you are in the middle of it, right? That's a piece of it. And then you can kind of see how the circle of being, kind of goes. You've got the circle of being, that's your, kind of your job, the avocation, the outside one. You've got the circle of relating, which is kind of the parental, marital, social. And then you've got kind of the circle of doing, I guess that's the opposite that I just did it. Hold on, let's try that again. Being is you, it's the spiritual, physical, intellectual. Relating is marital, parental, social. And then last is the doing, which is the avocational, vocational, and financial. And I'll kind of walk through, what I would do for, what I see people do for categories. So as we kind of go through this, I'll kind of walk you through. But, they've drawn it this way, and I don't care how they've drawn it. You get to pick how you want it to be for you. And I think that this is kind of, it was interesting when I first heard about life planning, and I heard the person, it wasn't Bill, it was a different event that I was at, say that I typically see spiritual and personal as the top 2. Not necessarily in that order, sometimes vice versa. But when they were themselves, I think they might have had spirit and their faith as number 1, but they had themselves as number 2 ahead of their spouse and their kids. And I thought, that's really weird. Like, I kind of at first would think I'd put my spouse and my kids ahead of me. But he said, well, if I'm not healthy and I'm not here for them, then I'm no good. And so therefore I come before that next outer circle. Although, these other pieces of it, the intellectual piece, which is my desire for personal growth, right? I have a personal growth plan in my life plan that I focus on every year. And that is not as important as my other relationships. So it comes to the end before my business comes, but it's after my wife and my kids and my friends and those other relationships. And so kind of this next step is to select your accounts, right? So you're going to go one account at a time. And then once you select that, you're going to define your purpose. So you kind of heard me talk about my health account, and I kind of read to you guys what my purpose was. And so again, you're going to do eulogy. Then you're going to do your, whatever that other thing, legacy statements. I'm like, wow, okay. It's because you have no notes around you, right? The only notes I had were on those crazy times that people take for their weddings and stuff. And then, then you're gonna have that purpose statement, right? So me, I want to be healthy because I want to be around for my grandkids. And then I actually prioritize my exercise because it is the most fun that I have. It's my time to connect with my wife, right? When we, had young kids and, the minute we could actually go out and exercise, and it's just always been great connecting time for us. And so then you're going to write your purpose statement on what you want that to be. And then you're going to kind of clarify a vision for it, right? And so for me, I just said I'm healthy, active, and strong. Focusing on my health gets my day off to the right start and will help me reach the rest of my goals consistently and efficiently. If I'm not healthy, how can I be the best for those around me? And then my notebook below is to cue up the Rocky theme song. And again, it's you'll see in a minute, but there's different reminders to yourself, right? But for me, that's just my mindset, right? Get out there and run up the steps like Rocky. And so that's my vision for my health. And then find some inspiration, right? So pictures, right? So, I've got, it's not the most exciting picture, my health, my life, but, for me, my business plan is full of, other pictures of me and my family. And then, quotes from songs, other pieces in here. And, really that's for me, my inspiration is the Rocky theme song, only because, like when we were younger, when my kids were younger and, whatever, you'd win a game, you'd solve a puzzle, it's the Rocky running around my house singing the song. So that's my personal inspiration. You got to come up with yours. And I thought it was cool. I felt actually kind of ripped off because I got a great friend. Her name is Lori Richardson, and she's been a dear friend for over a decade. And we were a master's coach together. And she carries around this notebook, and it's got all of her life plan, her business plan, all these ideas in it. It's like, it's probably worth millions of dollars, like lots of millions of dollars. But the first time I saw her life plan, she had pictures in it. I'm like, I got ripped off. And so I actually went up, and when I was doing my life planning time, normally I'll go and I'll show you kind of pictures. I normally go off in somewhere quiet, but I actually went back to my room, and then I pulled out pictures and I put pictures into my life plan before I redid it, because I thought that was super cool. So that's one of the things that wasn't original that other people did, and is also part of, the book Living Forward. So you want to find some inspiration. And sometimes I can see that. I see people do Bible quotes. I see just all sorts of other things. And then this is the hard part, right? You got to determine your current reality, right? Where are you now, right? What is my state in this piece? And I've kind of already said it. The reason that we have to do our current reality is because we got to know where we're starting in order to know where we're finishing. And so for me, if I say, currently I'm 163 pounds, I am not exercising as consistently as I should because I hurt my back. And so that's the abbreviated version of my health current reality. I'm eating healthy though. That's good. I extremely limit alcohol, carbs, all the things that I know I shouldn't eat, sugar, the things that I love that I just know aren't part of my plan. And just, again, for transparency, in the front of my planner, I've got my food plan. I write it in there every quarter. I rewrite it. Right. And so it's, things like pizza once a month, one great beer a week. Like I won't drink mediocre beer, just period. This is not going to happen. And then I typically won't drink one in a week. I might drink two, like once a month with my brothers when we, taste craft beer. And so, kind of as you think about these things, I'm nerdy. I write all these things out. It tells me what my other restrictions are, right? If I'm doing intermittent fasting, I'll put that in there that quarter, whatever that's going to be. If it's 11, 13, 16, 8, whatever that number's going to look like. But I write it down, and it's in a place that I can review it frequently, because by reviewing it helps me get there. But ultimately in the end, I got to know where I'm at now, right? So you're going to put in there what your current reality is for that account. And again, you're going to write it out. You have two choices. You can just bullet point it, or you can write it out in long form. And so that's the whole idea of where are you now? And then the last thing is to identify some specific commitments. And so just like I put activities before, I put commitments in this italics. And, again, because you got to commit to what it is I'm going to do to get there. And so, for me, I have meditate daily, hike or run 3 mornings a week, strength training 3 days a week, my daily routine of sit-ups, push-ups, and stretching. Those are my health activities. Those are my specific commitments. And, and it says work on posture. You see me doing that while I'm sitting here teaching. Eat to my health plan, visit the dentist semi-annually, and go for my functional medicine review 3 to 4 times a year. And again, so those are all in here. They're all in here for me and my health. And you know what? a specific commitment. You guys have all heard of SMART goals before, right? And when I teach and when I taught the business planning class, I teach SMART's goal. And so I had someone ask business planning class again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific. And then the recording from last week's is up in the YouTube channel. Just go to Win by Noon YouTube and you'll see it there. But SMART goal, specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, realistic, time sensitive. And then the S is stretching at the end, SMART's goal, right? So again, you want it to be specific. What I really say is I want to see these disciplines that you're going to make to your health and your commitments in your calendar, right? Like that should be something that if you and I opened up your calendar, whatever it is, looked at it on your phone, I want to know that you're working on your morning routine at these times, right? Hey, I get up at 6. And again, remember for me, Win by Noon isn't, get up at 4, which I used to do. I don't even do that anymore, right? I get up with a 5 in front of it. Every once in a while, 4:59 when I want to feel special. But most time it's got a 5 in front of it these days. And because I'm focused on my sleep, right? In fact, it's funny that my sleep's not in there. I promise you now that I'm going to write that in my plan, and I will have a sleep commitment in there. In fact, it's really weird. I forgot my Oura ring today, my ring that measures my sleep. I took it off when I hopped in the shower and I forgot it. And I feel naked. But ultimately, you are going to need to make sure that as you think through these things, think about SMART's goals and think about that. Is this a discipline? This is a commitment I can get in there. And again, you want to say, you don't want to say, I want to lose weight, right? Like I have a specific weight goal. It's funny because in here it said 160, but my new number is 159. I decided 159 was better than 160. So I'll fix that as well. Oh, I like that. Thanks. Tara said that S should be for stretch and sleep. Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm such a better human when I have got good sleep, and then I feel so much better when I stretch. That's for sure. And so again, I always ask, what does a commitment mean to you, right? What does it mean to you? You guys know what it means to me. I feel like I said that was my word for this year. I think there's a difference, right? We interviewed. It's probably been 2 years now. Andrew Paul, he's a Navy SEAL. And I know Andrew because ironically he was in Masters coach as well, but now he's the head guy over at Echelon, which is I'm drawing a blank. Who's our favorite? Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. And so he helps run all their organization and stuff. And he happens to be a loan officer in California, but we had him on and he really talked about the fact that they have standards in when you're a Navy SEAL and in all the militaries, they have a standard, and it's not a choice, right? You meet the standard, period, right? That's it. You are, it's not an option. Standard is a standard. And I think that's how I view a commitment, right? Is what are your standards? What are your commitments? And that's why they're in my plan. That's why I read it. That's why I review it, because if I stay committed to this, I'm not always gonna be perfect, right? It says here, I weigh 159 pounds. I weigh 163. So guess what? I'm eating healthy to get back to where I was, right? That's what it is. You're not gonna be perfect, right? There's no perfect. You're always going to get off track. I mean, this last, 18 months has been pretty crazy for all of us. And so kind of as we walk through this, I'll kind of take back and put a summary on it, but I really want to talk about the whole idea of this law of diminishing intent. And so I said this last week when I taught business planning. I say this every time I teach any kind of class on planning, that there's a thing called the law of diminishing intent. And what the law of diminishing intent says is that the further you get from now, when this ends, and the more that you allow life to get back in and take over, the less likely you are to actually implement what you just learned. And to me, that's unacceptable. I'm saying it's unacceptable on your behalf. And the reason I say it's unacceptable on your behalf is because you took the time to be here, right? You just unplugged for 49 minutes so far to learn about life planning. And you're still here, you're watching this if I put the recording up. I'm not sure that I will, but you're still here and you're plugged in. And I encourage you, maybe you've already done a life plan. In fact, if I was really smart, I would have said, hey, put in the chat if you've actually done a life plan before. But maybe it's just a refresher so that you can go review. And but in the end, I don't care. You spent the time to be here, and you owe it to yourself. You owe it to those people that you're going to put in those accounts to make sure that you actually execute on it. Now, I'm not telling you to execute on it today, right? My life plan review is going to be between Christmas and New Year's this year. And so I don't need yours to be today, but what I would like you to do right when we get off this call is I would like you to actually look at your calendar. And so, you guys all make fun of me because I'm obviously a big fan of my Win by Noon calendar that comes in the planner. If you're not a Win by Noon user and you want a copy of our calendar that's, 11 by 17 that pulls out, cardstock, just email me. I'll throw my email address up at the end, todd@winbynoon.com. But ultimately, you got to get it written down. So I want it on your calendar. I want it wherever that is, if it's electronic calendar, but I want you to get it scheduled. And I'll kind of walk through how I would do that here. So you're going to schedule the time. And again, we're going to schedule it now. And then of course, me, I'm a little bit of a smart ass. So I said, no, really now. And so I just take a second, think about it, when it'll be, and then you can do it between now and within 3 minutes of when we get off, you're going to schedule time. And sort of, let me tell you, I'll show you a couple of pictures here. It was funny because Daniel Harkavy, when he teaches it to go find your rock, is what he says. And so here I am, this is in, I think, Laguna Niguel. And literally I get out there and there's this rock. Now, the irony of this picture is what you can't see is that literally right on the other side of me at the very base of the rock, there's another friend of mine sitting there working on his life plan. But I had the blessing. And here's another picture real quick. Just again, this is me sitting out there. Again, this is overlooking the beach. On the other side of these flowers is the beach. And so let me kind of tell you how that worked for us. And when I say you got to schedule time, I think it's really important. It can't be sitting here at your desk. And I was really blessed to be part of Master's Coach for 13 years. I was a member of it for 10 years. I was a coach of it for 3 years. And every December, so Master's Coach, if you had never heard of it, Building Champions had it. And it was, when I first started, it was mainly big producers, team leaders, and then team leaders and big producers grew to regional managers, national sales managers. We had a couple of CEOs in the group over time, and just, rock star members of the mortgage community from all over the country. And we would meet once a quarter in some nice place. One event was a team event. And then there was one event that you always knew was the life planning event. So every December for all those years, every single December for all those years, we typically went to California, and there was a beach there, as you saw, because the weather was nice. You could go out and sit by the beach, and we didn't go to our hotel rooms, right? Just that one time when I was getting those pictures out, but we would go sit on the beach and life plan, or I sat in a chair in that other picture. But here's what happened was every single time Daniel would spend an hour with us, and he would walk us through the importance of life planning over and over every year. We all knew it. We all did it. We were the practitioners of the world who did it, but he told us the stories. He talked about the drift. Why did he do that? You guys hear me. He's poking me in the side. He is, he's rubbing salt in the wounds of any regret that I might have, so that a couple things don't happen. Number one is that I'm in the mortgage business. I don't go out there and answer my phone and start taking loan applications. He wants me to keep my head in the game. And so he's going to prep me for it. He's going to tell me how he does it every year, which he does. He goes to the Oregon coast, he unplugs, he goes there, he surfs in the freezing cold water, and he goes and sits, and he just, again, and unplugs and thinks, right? The weirdest part is I talk a lot about thinking time now. It's one of my intentions for next year is to be scheduling truly just time to think. But historically, if I actually look at my life, the only time I've ever done real thinking time was around my life plan. And the cool thing that they did was they would always do something really fun every year, and just crazy stuff like I would get letters. So I would get letters from my parents, my kids, my wife, team members about me. Like that's like super humbling. One year we got an iPod. People called in instead of writing a letter. They called in and left a fancy voicemail thing, and they converted it over, and you could listen to what people said about you. You just look up and down the beach. Everyone's in tears. One year, my kids and my wife did a DVD for me, put our favorite music in and just our best pictures of family, and super emotional. But you have to get there to be in the mood and in the place mentally to do your life plan. And so I think about that. I've got a life planning package, I would call it. And it's got my old life plans in it, and it's got there's a life plan review tool. So when I'll give you the address to Building Champions where you can request it, where you look at it and say, how did I do in this account? How do I rate myself? How did I rate myself in, in whatever that was? And so, we would get books to do it in. And so, we would have a book, and it would have, again, here was a life planning book, that they would do. And again, you'll get this from Building Champions when you go to their website, but, basically gave the purpose and vision, future inspiring quote. But then for the people who were doing their life plan review, you would look at that same account and you would say, what's the account? How did I do that year? Why did I rate it that way? And what were my biggest wins in the account? And then what was my biggest challenge in the account? What were any big changes or developments? And what was the greatest opportunity in the account? And so what I do is I go through and I actually write out, I don't, use that, but I write out what was my year about? And it's hard. And that's where my nerdy calendar helps me, because it tells me, okay, when I start this year and I look at what my year was, I'm going to look back and remember that I started the year in Connecticut, right? We were in Connecticut for 3 weeks. And then I was in South Carolina and New Orleans in my Airstream, and went through Texas. And I'm going to remember that. And I'm going to reflect back on the victories, the moments that we had together, that, running in the 20-degree weather with my middle daughter, Emmeline and Tara, and running across the water in Connecticut, and just how much fun we had, the conversations we had. And so I spend that time thinking, reflecting. I guess I reflect first, write all that stuff out, rate myself. And then I think about it just spend some time in thought. And then I go back in and I do the modifications to my life plan. And it takes me, 3-4 hours now to do it. Could I do it faster? Absolutely. But I choose to take the time to do it. Daniel takes a full day. And so there's no right or wrong answer to it. The first time I knocked it out in less than an hour, maybe 90 minutes, something like that. It was pretty quick. But I scheduled the time to do it. I got out of the office. I actually packed a picnic and, wandered out on a hiking trail and sat and worked on my plan in solitude. And that's the hard part. So that law of diminishing intent is, I got to get you to schedule it. And so I'm spending time looking at you, asking for your buy-in and encouraging you to prioritize this. And, I started out with that piece. In fact, let me just share where you can get the Building Champions stuff. I think that's my next slide. But again, I just want you to know, this is how I did it, right? And this was, someone snapped this picture of me and I liked it. So I took it. So you can see there, I've got their little guide there that I'm going through. And so here's the two things. Now, this is a really long thing. So let me, I wonder if I can cut and paste this into chat. Hang on, let me go back to that one. Let me try to put that into chat. That would have been really smart if I would have done it, so you guys could just click on it. But you can always email info@buildingchampions.com, but it's buildingchampions.com/resource/tool/life-plan-guide. And so let's just see here. It's got just make sure I spelled it all right. .com/resource/tool. All right, I think this is it. So someone will tell me if I'm wrong, but there it is right there. You can cut and paste it into your browser. Oh, you rock, David. He even gave us the real one. Nice job. Woohoo. And so, you know what, me, the reason that I was so excited to do this, and I've talked for a couple of years about teaching this as a webinar. I got Building Champions permission a couple of years ago to do it, and I just didn't do it. And I don't know why, probably because I was scared. I teach people in business, and not everyone wants to talk about life because it's really hard for people. However, I made a commitment. Some of you who follow us in the mortgage coach community know who Jonathan Roach is. And I was able to go to his, he had an event earlier this year in the fall, and he had about just under 20 of us, handful of people in the mortgage business, including the #1 loan officer in the country, people in, high up at Microsoft, someone who ran a bank. I mean, just really, unique people there, top real estate agents, a couple. And you had to present different things about your life, and you had to present a book. And so I got up to present on Living Forward as the book. And it really impacted me to talk about it. And, one of the things that Jonathan talks about is being world class, right? So that, in my planner every day, my top 3, I write really big BWC, be world class. But one of his things is the top level is being a world-class master guide. And so as I'm telling you, if I'm going to be real about it, if I'm telling you that my goal is to leave a great legacy and impact as many lives as possible, and I believe I can do that in business. I believe I do that in business. However, what I would tell you is that I know that my legacy is even bigger if I can get you to take the time to write a life plan, because I know it is a game changer. I know it's going to change your personal world. I think it's going to change those around you, because ultimately in the end, we're going to go through phases of life where we are all in, where we are laser focused, where we are full of energy, and we're going to go through times where we're not, right? There's going to be things that throw you off your game, and you're going to have a compass, that GPS to go back to get you going. And that is what your life plan can be. And so here's what I would encourage, right? I already threw it out there. I'm trying to tell you guys 100 times that, for me, I learned it from Building Champions. Daniel Harkavy was kind of my guide alongside of Bill Hart in life planning over all of these years, as well as my other coaches that I've had there. And so I would encourage you to reach out to them if you have any questions. Certainly you guys have my email address, which is just todd@winbynoon.com. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to review anyone's life plan if you feel so. It's always an honor. When I started out coaching at Building Champions, when I started out as a coach, one of the things that you do is when you are in need of a coach, there's something that you want. I told you when I hired Bill Hart, I wanted someone who could quickly get me from where I was as a loan officer to where I wanted to be. Right. Again, I knew where I was. I was closing a fair amount of loans. I think I closed 152 loans the year that I was hiring him, but I really wanted to close more. I wanted to be a $100 million producer, and I knew where I wanted to go, but I didn't know how to get there. And so when I thought that he was going to help me with this business plan and my priority management, he said, well, I can't really help you with your priority management till I know your business plan. Can't really help you with your business plan until you work on your business vision. And they said, ultimately, really, I can't really help you with your business vision unless I know who you are as a human. Unless I know really who you are in life, like what is your vision for your life? And I thought, that's not what I was expecting. And I already said it. He threatened to fire me indirectly. Let's just say that as a client. And in the end, it's the most impactful thing that I did as a client of Building Champions. And it was, I think, the most impact I had as a coach when I was coaching, and I would have to let someone know who was hiring me to help them with that business, one of those 3 phases of their business that we were going to start there, was always a humbling experience, because it was giving me a glimpse into their life when I didn't really earn it yet. I didn't know them. And so I'm happy if any of you want to, share yours with me, let me know. There's lots of examples in the back of Living Forward. You probably can go to livingforwardbook.com. I think that's what it was. Again, livingforwardbook.com. And there's probably some resources that you can probably still, access from all of them. But just know I'm here and happy to be a resource. I'm just grateful for all of you for taking the time to be here today. I knocked it out in just about an hour. I was actually I didn't tell you up front, but I was worried I was going to go for 90 minutes. But that was good. I realized when I got my pacing was pretty good. And it just always comes back to the storytelling, right? And I feel the storytelling is important, because when I tell the stories, then I want it to resonate with you. I want you to think, okay, that sounds like me. I can do that. And so my encouragement is what I said before, right? We're going to take action. We're going to take action, right? We're going to make a commitment. We're going to write it in our calendar when we're going to do it, and we're going to schedule it now, right? Literally, when we get done here in a minute and a half or whatever, I get off and stop rambling. You're going to schedule when you're going to do it. And then, you know what? You may realize that you scheduled it at a time where your significant other has you booked for something else. That's okay. When you find that out, you're not going to delete it until you rebook it for another time. But we're going to get that done, because I want you to be intentional around 2022. And the way you're going to be intentional is by taking the time to figure out what your legacy is, to figure out what is most important to you, figure out where you are, where you're trying to go, and then what are those disciplines and activities that you need to do to get there, and then be committed to getting them done. I appreciate you more than you know. I cannot wait to see your success and hear the stories in the future about how today made a difference for you. How today and the actions that you're going to take will make a difference for those around you. Thanks so much. I appreciate you guys for being here. Love any feedback that you have. We will see you soon.